So here I have a mock-up of a card. It's a card with an image in the center, some spacing around an image, a blue background, round corners, and there is an interaction. So when I hover over an image, over the card, there is an overlay with the text in the center. Some animation and fading in effects as well. So my first step, I will try to recreate this in CodePen. My first step will be to go to the CodePen. So here I am in a CodePen. I started my project. I created one div with the class of card. I added an image inside. I'm just using a placeholder link for an image. And inside of the card, I also have my card description. This will also be my overlay. And inside of it, I have a span with a text, and I put it inside of the span just to have a little bit more control over it so I can add additional styles. I've also added some styles to start with. So I have image. I want it to display full width inside of its container. And then I have basic card styles. I have position relative, and this style will enable me to position the text and an overlay wherever I want. I have some flexbox going on to center the image inside of the container or inside of the card. I have some padding because there was some blue spacing between an image and the edges of the card. I've added a blue color and some border radius. So right now how that looks like is this. So my image is right here and my text is on the right. This is because of the flexbox. So now if I add position relative to my description, this website, position absolute, because we already have position relative on the whole card. What those two styles do together is whatever element has a position absolute, it will go outside of the regular flow, in this case just right. So without it, element just falls on the right because of the flexbox native behavior, but when a child element gets this position absolute, it just gets out of that flow of the website. So now I have it right where I want it. My next steps will be to add more styles to my overlay, to my card description section. In fact, I will rename it. I don't like this card description. I will rename it to the card overlay. So first, I want to stretch this overlay to the edges of the card. So I will write bottom 0, so it starts at the bottom, left 0. And I can do that because now position is set to absolute, and I can change the position of this overlay to whatever I want. I also want right 0 because I want it to be full width. And I won't add top 0 because I want to actually hide it on the bottom. So I will use a height property later to show it. Actually, I'm wrong. I will need a height 0 here, but not the top. Height 0. So now I have overlay starts here at the bottom of the card nicely. I also will need transition. And I will just go maybe 0.3 seconds ease. Since I have a height, I also need a width. And I want it to be full width, so I'm just going to write 100%. And I should probably add a background color so we can see this thing. And maybe some shade of blue. Something like this. So the reason why we can't see it right now is because it doesn't have any size. So if we add a little bit of a height, we will be able to see it. So it's on the bottom, it's blue. If I remove it, it goes back at the bottom of the card. Perfect. Now the one more thing, we don't want to see this NASA website redesign on the bottom. We need to hide it. And to hide it, we can use a overflow property and set it to hidden. And what will that do is it will hide whatever this tag contains. In our case, it contains the text, so you can see it's gone now. We can't see it. And we can't see it because size of this element is equal to 0. We just made it. It's actually 1 pixel, but you can't see anything. Okay, next step, let's create a simple, animation just so we make sure this part works. So I will copy this class and, I will actually add my card class here because I want this to show once somebody hovers over the whole card. So I will add class hover and now space card overlay. What this selector does, it says once when you hover over the class, once when you hover over the element with a class of card, which is this whole thing, then do something with an element that has a class of card overlay. And inside of here, I will use this height property to animate it. So I just want it to be 100% because currently it's 0 and I want it to go all the way to the top. So now if okay, so this is close. It's not perfect. We have animation that's going from the bottom, but it's a square. Our element is a square. There is no opacity, so we will have to add those things. And also text is in the top right corner and we want it to be centered. So fixing these two things should be easy. So we just need to add some border radius to our overlay, and I think the card radius is 24 pixels, so I will add a border radius of 24 pixels here. And then this background color, we need some opacity, and this won't work. We need a property called, we need to call the color differently, so we need this RGBA and then open and close brackets, not F, RGBA, and adding color in this way will enable us to add some opacity to it. So if I go and if I write something like this, 200, 200, so these numbers, first 3 numbers are actual values. So first value, first 200 stands for red, second one is green, and then the last one is blue. And the very last fourth value is an opacity. So we can put something like 0.3. And let's save that. So now when we hover over it, we have this element sliding in. Now it's too light. We will need something darker. But it's close enough. Okay, so I made this a little bit darker. It doesn't match perfectly to the mock, but since I don't know the value, it's close enough. Now the next step is text. And I already see one problem, and that is the text animates with the container, where in the mockup, text just faded in from the center. So we will have to fix that as well. Okay, so I added some styles. So I have a color of white, some padding around this span. I have a border of 2 pixels white. I set all the text to be uppercase like in a mock. And then these styles, position absolute, will again take this span out of the regular flow of the HTML, how browser will display it. Top and left of 50% together with this transform translate will position the text in the middle of this container, and then text align center just refers to the text itself that will be centered. So now if you hover, okay, so we are very close to what we need. We have box showing on top of the image. Let's compare with our mock. So this is very close. So the only thing that's not there is this text fading in. But to fix that is easy. So first things first, I will take this span out of the overlay. I will do this, and I will put this overlay on its own line. Then I will copy this span on its new line outside of the overlay. So now we have it in a position we had it at the beginning. It's in a regular flow of the page. We will add a class of card text, and we will save this new HTML. So now we have a card, we have an image inside of the card, we have an overlay that animates nicely, exactly what we want, and then we have a span with some text in it that sits next to an image. So our next move would be to go to our text, and now we will just change this card overlay span to card text, because we still want to keep all the old styles. And now this element is out of the regular flow of the page because of this position absolute. Let me fix this, make it a little bit nicer. This MS transform and transform, they're the same, but this one is just for Internet Explorer, older browsers. All right, let's go and let's look at the mock one more time. So text is white. Okay, and text fades in basically into the page a little bit later than the overlay, or maybe at the same time, but okay, they fade in the same time, just from a different position. Okay. So first, we need to hide this NASA website redesign title, right? We will do this using this opacity property. And we'll set it to 0, so now it's gone. And on hover, we want to show it. First thing, before we do that, we want to use one of the properties we used before, and that is this transition. Speed of transition will let us adjust when these different elements show in a page. So now we have transition in place. And for actual hover effect, we will use the same element as we did before. So we will, when a user hovers over the card, so card hover, then we want something to happen with this card text element. So we'll just copy it here. And the only thing that we want to change is opacity. We want to set it to 1. So let's save this. And now when we hover, we have overlay coming from the bottom to the top and text fading in from the center of the screen. I hope this was useful, and have a great rest of your day.